Welcome to the TV3, to the show Meeting Interesting People. Today, my guest, Father Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we showed our viewers this previous documentary short movie about our pilgrimage to the Russian Orthodox male monastery upstate New York. This is the first time I heard that Father Paul from Medford, and I will let him tell us why his chapel called Celtic Orthodox Church, how you came to Medford, and on the way we just probably raise some other questions.
Very good. Well, first of all, I had been wanting to go to Holy Trinity Monastery for a long time, for a number of years. So when I knew there was a pilgrimage that was being organized, I was very happy to go along, and that's where I met you, of course.
Yes.
Under the very beautiful circumstances, and I was especially impressed with the beauty of the liturgy and the icons. I am in the Medford area, though for over 30 years, I had been assigned to a number of different countries, to Italy, to the Dominican Republic, and so forth. But my parents are very old now, and they said, well, we've hardly seen you in all those years. Can you move nearer to us?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I was assigned here by my bishop, and he asked me to open up a little parish. Curiously, there's already a St. Francis of Assisi parish in Medford.
We have it, yes.
But this is just the beginnings of a little Celtic Orthodox. What we mean by Celtic Orthodox is it's basically the same thing as Catholic in terms of the teachings and the faith and most of the practices. But it goes back to a time, it's the earliest Christianity that existed in Western Europe. It dates back from the time of St. Joseph of Arimathea, the one who took Christ off the cross and buried him in his tomb. And he was a tin merchant. And he used to go to France and he'd go to England, and he began preaching the teachings of Christ around the year 37. So this goes back to apostolic times. And he opened his church in Glastonbury in England. And at that time, today we think of the Celts as being the Irish and the Welsh and the Scotch,
Right.
and maybe a few Bretons, you know. But actually, most of Western Europe was Celtic at one time, all the way down into northern Italy. All of northern Italy was Cisalpine Gaul until Julius Caesar started pushing them back. And then they were finally driven back to England. Then the Anglo-Saxons came and kept pushing them back and back. But they were a very widespread people at one time. The Druids and all of these people were Celtics, the Gauls. And so the kind of Christianity that was practiced at that time was very simple. But the particularity of it was not as structured, as hierarchical, as organized as, say, the Roman Church was, which eventually absorbed most of the earlier form of Christianity. But it was a very mystical spirituality. A lot of emphasis on the beauty of the poetry that they would chant, of nature. They didn't have the concept that nature was a bad thing, or that even that the body was a bad thing. They thought all things as a way of glorifying God, and they had very much that concept of the theosis, of the divinization of the soul, not emphasis on sin, but of the union of the soul with God. This was the great emphasis, and very communitarian, very monastic. There were monasteries. A lot of the great saints, Celtic saints, like St. Patrick himself, or St. Brendan, St. Columban, and many others. These were very courageous saints. And these are saints that are recognized in both churches, the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church today, because this goes back to a time when there was not yet any division in the church. This is a pre-schism. And so in that sense, both churches share in the veneration of these saints.
Mm-hmm.
And this thread of Celtic Orthodoxy, it continued through history up until recent times and was re-established formally through the Syriac Orthodox Church in the middle of the 19th century, where it was reaffirmed, it was recognized that this was an apostolic church. And since it had kind of dwindled out, just to be sure that nobody would doubt its apostolic succession, there was this reconsecration that
So
took
for a
place.
while they were like underground because it was not that popular.
Well, it's that you see, the Roman Church, when it was recognized by Constantine, it took on the qualities of Rome. Very organized, very legal-minded, construction, administrative, and so forth. And this gave them, with the wealth that came, a certain strength and a certain power. And so it was only natural that little by little they would gradually absorb what was in fact a more mystical, a more poetic kind of Christianity. But it's interesting that now today, precisely when both the Orthodox churches, Russian and the Greek, and the Roman Catholic Church are seeing the need to work together to save Christianity, that a lot of people are now looking to see how can we reinstall within Christianity this spirit, this beauty, this love of beauty, this love of the universe that God created, and see it as an instrument of sanctification, along with of course.
So we will remind our viewers that on Sunday you have a service.
I do every Sunday at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, and it's on the Washington Street.
10 Washington Street.
10 Washington Street.
For now, it's just in my apartment to begin with, in the living room, which I've made up into a lovely little chapel.
Chapel. Yes, I visited. I like it.
But eventually, I'm hoping that if we can find a little church. I had my eye on one, but it's very much used now. There's not any free time for it. But I'm looking around to see if I can find a...
Yeah, and it's absolutely not important what kind of faith this person who will come visit have, because everyone is welcome to...
Everyone is welcome.
To see the service, to participate in the service.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I know that your bishop is located and the monastery located in France.
That's right. That's right.
So
in Brittany, which is of course Celtic territory.
Right. Tell us a little bit about this monastery and the bishop, because it's a very interesting story behind. Because
it is. Yes. Well, and how I met him, in fact, was very, very interesting.
Yes.
This monastery, it's a small monastery, out in the woods in Brittany. And the way I came to meet the bishop there was quite providential, because I had never heard of it. I had no idea I was going there.
But you know, nothing is coincidence anyway.
That's why I considered providential.
Exactly.
And there was a man, a Frenchman, who lived about 10 kilometers away from the monastery, who had asked me to translate a book for him, which I did. And he said, "I'd love for you to meet my father." His father's a retired French ambassador to India and Jordan and Chile. And he said he'd like to meet you. So I had to go to England, so he said, "Come over to France." And I did, and I met him. He said, "He'll take you to our home." Well, his home is a 15th century castle with drawbridge and moat and everything. It's going back centuries there. And he told me, he said, "I'd love to go and visit the monks of this monastery. My wife died last year. They helped her so much. We've known them for many years. Will you come with me?" I said, "Sure." And the minute I set foot on that property, I felt the presence of God. I said, "It's here. This is it." So I
belong to this place.
I do, yeah.